of BamaInsider.com. Obviously, breaking news as Alabama has hired Tommy Rees as the new offensive coordinator to replace Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien taking the offensive coordinator position with the New England Patriots. This is all breaking. We'll have Clint Lamb, Jimmy Stein join us to give us their take. We're also going to open up the phone lines. Chris, if you can put the phone line on the bottom as well. But breaking news is this is just coming in. There was, speculation that it could be a couple different people, and then Tommy Rees popped up. And I want to get your take inside the comment box. What you're thinking about the direction of Alabama's offensive coordinator, Nick Saban. Clearly, after we've been covering him for the last several seasons, there's been a lot of turnover in terms of the offensive coordinator position, but not necessarily the lack of production. I think I was listening to a show recently. It was kind of grading Bill O'Brien. What was his kind of, legacy at Alabama? And a lot of people don't like Bill O'Brien just because he didn't win a national championship. So now you have Tommy Rees coming over, was at Notre Dame. He played at Notre Dame, working with the quarterbacks, and the Fighting Irish ranked 42nd in scoring. Their offense, completely different personnel, 31.8 points per game, 60th in total offense. Of course, you can read more at Bama Insider right now. Notre Dame did deal with the loss of the starting quarterback position, and there's going to be some various injuries. But from what I gather from Tommy Rees, you're going to see an offense that might be even a little bit more predicated in terms of running the football. And I think a lot of people want to see kind of Alabama get back to not necessarily controlling the overall time of possession, but using their running backs to, kind of not necessarily get back to the old days, but, they want to kind of a more pro style offense. When you look to the NFL, the teams that are, playing for the Super Bowl, they can run and pass the football. You don't want to get too one dimensional. So Tommy Rees hired by Nick Saban as the offensive coordinator at Alabama. Call line is at the bottom of the screen. You can call in and give me your take, 205-850-1994. This is just breaking news. Want to get your take. And it's important that you had to go with a hire that was working with the quarterbacks. Clearly, Steve Sarkisian worked with the quarterbacks. Bill O'Brien worked with the quarterbacks. So Tommy Rees being a quarterback himself and the quarterback's coach at Notre Dame and working with Notre Dame as their offensive coordinator, now coming to Alabama, young guy. And I think it was even referenced recently that it kind of like that ground heavy approach with the running backs and the tight ends. And I want to get your take on that. So again, call line is open. It's at the bottom of the screen, 205-850-1994. Chris, if you can send out the links to Jimmy, Clint, and maybe even Bone, get these guys on and get their takes. I mean, look, Coach Saban has never led Alabama in the wrong direction, number one. So I think if you're out there and you're like, okay, what's going on? Who is Tommy Rees? And we're going to fill you in more as we continue to go forward. John is saying that he loves the hire. Right. I mean, I'm kind of like, look, you sit back, you had to go with the younger guy. And I think this is what stands out to me. Okay. Two things. Number one, he's a younger guy. So I love it from the recruiting angle. But let me ask you this. And I was talking to, I was talking to someone recently, and I mentioned this. What if Tommy Rees comes over and he brings over Sam Hartman, who just transferred from Wake Forest? Can you imagine? That would break the internet, right? So could that potentially happen? Is that something that could be in the works down the road? I don't know. It seems realistic to me, right? We've talked about the quarterback position at Alabama following the departure of Bryce Young to the NFL. You have Jalen Milroe coming back. You have two very talented freshmen coming in, and then you have Ty Simpson. But can you imagine if Tommy Rees comes over and somehow is able to navigate and work with bringing over Sam Hartman from Notre Dame? I mean, I don't think it's unrealistic. So Alabama's offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, who is the OC at Notre Dame, now be the OC at Alabama. I'm curious to see what he's going to get paid, right? It's going to be a big-time job. 2.1, 2.2? Something like that. And now you look to the defensive side, and it's kind of been a little bit quiet on the defensive side. And I think a lot of people had a sigh of relief today when they saw that Tom Grantham is going back to the NFL to coach with the Saints. I think a lot of people were like, okay, I can take a deep breath. And people want Pruitt, right? Like that is the name that they're calling for. Again, call online. I want to get your take on the hire, 205-850-1994. But Todd Grantham is no longer going to be mentioned as someone who could replace Pete Golding for the DC for the Alabama Crimson Tide. But in terms of the offense, you have your offensive coordinator. It took a little bit, maybe longer than what we were anticipating, but Tommy Rees is your guy, comes from Notre Dame, played quarterback at Notre Dame. I like the fact that, you have a guy clearly that's going to be working with the quarterbacks, but also played the quarterback position. And I'm asking, down the road if he could take Sam Hartman. When you look at Notre Dame, I was reading this earlier, just a couple stats. If you're just joining, hit the thumbs up button, like, subscribe. We appreciate you guys coming in. Let us know where you're watching from. The Fighting Irish ranked 42nd in scoring. That's offense, 31.8 points per game across the nation, and 60th in total offense. Again, remember, it's a different personnel at Notre Dame. It's a different style. It's a different systematic approach from the schematic standpoint. They checked in, ranked number 32 in passing efficiency, 147.23, and as well as 35th in rushing offense, 189.1 yards per game, and 98th in passing offense. Again, you're working with different personnel. I'm curious to see what type of offense that he brings to Alabama with what you have going forward. And AJ, that's what I just asked. If you're just joining the show, and you're forgetting that Sam Hartman transferred from Wake Forest to Notre Dame. I think Sam Hartman's a very, very good quarterback. And AJ's asking, why do we need Sam Hartman? Right? This AJ clearly has faith in Jalen Milroe, and I think he has faith in Ty Simpson and the two younger quarterbacks behind him. In my opinion, I think Alabama still needs a proven quarterback. You can that can be debatable, right? Maybe there's people who feel Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson can get the job done. They might very well be able to, right? Call in the show 205-850-1994. Want to get your take on Tommy Rees being hired as Alabama's new offensive coordinator. My name is Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com, coming to you from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Now we're waiting for the DC. I know people want to see, Jeremy Pruitt. If Jeremy Pruitt was hired at Alabama, people would be so happy. In my opinion, I think this is what's going to happen. Alabama's going to somehow be able to get Jeremy Pruitt in some sort of strange title, right? Like a analyst or whatever, however they swing it. And then you're going to have another DC, but kind of behind the scenes, it'll be Jeremy Pruitt that'll be making kind of the decision along with Nick Saban. Because remember, Nick Saban is a defensive-minded coach, and he's always been that way. So the news is out, finally. Tommy Rees is the OC at Alabama. If you like it, hit the thumbs up on this video. I want to get your take inside the comment box, and you can call in and give your opinion right now, 205-850-1994. Again, I think when you look to Alabama's returning unit at the running back position, I think that Rees will come in, and I think he'll find a way to have a balanced approach. I think the receivers that you have coming back for Alabama are going to be more than sufficient to get the job done, especially some of these younger guys. You look to the production of Isaiah Bond and Kobe Prentice specifically. I think that Isaiah Bond is a guy that can take over the top. Then you have the junior college wide receiver coming in. You have Jermaine Burton, who I feel is a possession wide receiver. So you kind of have those components coming back from the offensive side. I want to see what they can do with the new transfer tight end that's coming in from Maryland. And like our user saying is right here, the tight end play is going to be really impactful, because I think when you look to Notre Dame's offense, you look to some of the tight ends that they had, they were very good, probably underrated. And I thought Notre Dame had a good way of kind of utilizing their different weapons. Remember, there's been plenty of time that we've been talking about, trying to figure out how to get your weapons to the football. And we kind of mimic that after the 49ers, right? What Kyle Shanahan has done, utilizing all his weapons. And I think when you watch Notre Dame's offense over the last couple of seasons, they've had different weapons that they've been able to utilize. So now that I'm thinking about it, I think Tommy Rees is, it's going to be interesting to see how he can distribute the football, because I think that's what people wanted to see was more creativity. I think there was times where it was a little bit too vanilla, especially with the quarterback that you had in Bryce Young, just for people's sake. And I think there's a good amount of people that wanted to see, more of a running approach. But it still trips me out that Jahmyr Gibbs was the leading receiver last year's team. D1 Royal is asking, can he run tempo? Good question. And do you want to see tempo? Is that the style of offense that you want to see Alabama running? You look at the quarterbacks coming back, and let's just talk about Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe, since we know what each of those guys bring to the table. What offense what offensive style would fit each of those guys best? Chris, give me a thumbs up. Did you send that link out to our guys? Okay, perfect. Call in show 205-850-1994. The news is out. Tommy Rees is Alabama's new OC. Young guy. I like it. Because sometimes, let me tell you, what I've learned is when you bring in an NFL guy, it doesn't always translate that well because these NFL guys come in, and I get it. They understand the passing trees, the philosophy, but it doesn't translate well to recruiting. I've seen that. I saw it with Brian DeBall. Great mind. Look what he's doing right now. Just didn't like the recruiting aspect. So we got a caller on the line. We'll take it now. We got it's a 281. We'll start the show off. Hey, you're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Appreciate you calling. What's your name and where you calling in from?
James White, calling in from Houston, Texas.
Oh, we appreciate it, man. Hey, congratulations. I don't know if you're a Texan fan, but you got D'Amico Ryans, coming in. So I don't know if you followed Texans, but I know Texan fans are really excited about that hire.
It is very exciting times here in Houston about him. A little bit about me. I'm born and raised in Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
And I moved here in 2006. So I didn't necessarily adopt the Texans, but I am a D'Amico Ryans fan for sure. He's one of my favorite linebackers in family history. So they're all excited about him, and I think he's going to do a great job here. He may actually wind up drafting a Bama player.
Of course,
one of his first picks.
Of course, that's what's going to be amazing. So you got D'Amico Ryans, who's going to draft probably Bryce Young. So I mean, I think a lot of Alabama fans might be traveling to Houston or become Houston Texan fans.
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching with more interest now.
All right, so what you got? So Alabama hires Tommy Rees. It seems like trusting Nick Saban, but give me your initial take on the hire.
Well, that's it. I trust Nick Saban.
Yeah, right.
He's not a person that's going to hire someone. I also think he has a specific plan. If we notice what Nick Saban does, he normally does some type of cultural reset every 5 or 6 years or so. Within the staff, and kind of reflects where football is at a particular time. And it looks like he's going for younger coaches who have a similar philosophy about football, but could still expand and relate to today's recruiting. I think all of that factors into it, whether it be NIL and how that's going, and then just the mentality of players. You want to have coaches who speak the language and who are closer to what guys, the 18-year-olds that are recruiting coming out, that they understand and have a point of relativity with those guys. So I think Tommy Rees fits that to a degree. We know he wants to run the ball. And I think the offense may look a little bit like what Brian Daboll had when he was here. And of course, we had a lot of receiving talent there, but we also had Bo Scarborough and Josh Jacobs and Damian Harris and Najee Harris, and they all saw the field that year. So this could be a running by committee year, which I would like, especially when you got a new quarterback coming in. We don't know if it's going to be Jalen Milroe or Ty Simpson. But the best thing you can give a young quarterback is a running game, and a consistent running game that can do it for multiple levels. I think you can get other players involved, other receivers involved when you're moving the ball around and getting short yards and then strike when the iron is hot. So I think it can still be a dynamic offense. It won't be like what we saw with Lane Kiffin or Steve Sarkisian, but it'll be good enough to move the chains and be a consistent chain moving offense. And I think it's going to work well. I like the hire.
On with James calling in from Houston. Of course, a lot of news in Houston is the Texans have hired D'Amico Ryans and then probably pick up Bryce Young. You know what, James, I think you bring up a great point. If you want to call into the show, 205-850-1994, I think you bring up a really interesting point, is the fact that the coach that you hire right now, especially your OC and your DC, they have to be able to speak the language of college football, whether that's transfer portal, whether that's the NIL. You read recently that Alabama has recently added Alabama, which is really the first of its kind in the NIL space. And that is another element that you have to balance, right? Recruiting, NIL, the transfer portal. So when you're coming to Alabama, those are the other aspects that you have to be able to manage. And I think a younger mind in that aspect is really important to bring on. James, let me ask you another question in terms of the quarterback play. When you look to Ty Simpson, when you look to Jalen Milroe, and the two younger quarterbacks who are already enrolled. In fact, Alabama has, I believe, 26 early enrollees, which is really incredible. How important is it, do you think, the quarterback development is? I mean, that's kind of a softball question to you, but these guys are younger. I haven't given up on Jalen Milroe. I know there's a lot of support for Jalen Milroe and of course for Ty Simpson, but it's really important to continue to foster those growth of these two guys going into the spring season.
Yeah, I think the hire was specifically about that.
Yeah,
and obviously, whatever he presented in the conversation with Nick Saban, he spoke the language that Nick Saban wanted to hear concerning whatever their plan is. And I trust what that plan is going to be. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Ty Simpson. I don't care if it's Jalen Milroe. We have won with Jake Coker. You know what I mean? We won and won a lot of games with Blake Sims, who couldn't, who was just a transplant quarterback. We were able to win. We found a way to win. I'm going to get behind whoever's behind, even if it's the two freshman quarterbacks. I think it's going to be open. I think it's going to be a 4-person competition. I don't think there's any biases there where the incumbent quarterbacks have a leg up on the new guys, Dylan Lonergan or Eli Holstein.
Yep.
I think it's going to be an open competition, and whoever shows themselves in the spring to take the job, they'll get the opportunity to do it. And whoever's behind center at quarterback for game one, I am behind them. What I don't want is supposed to be in shotgun when the ball's on the 2-yard line.
Oh my God. It's so frustrating when that happens. Okay. Hey, James, thank you so much, man. Save the number. You had great feedback. I really like the points that you brought to the table. Call in again next time. Probably the next time we have the DC, man. So James, save the number, call again the DC, enjoy the Houston Texans, enjoy D'Amico coming in. As a 49er fan, man, I'm a little bit jealous, but he obviously had to go fly. So call again next time. We appreciate you calling in.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
All right, that was James out in Houston, Texas. We got two callers. We got a 423 and a 251. The news is out. Alabama has finally hired their offensive coordinator. That's Tommy Rees. I think we went all over the spectrum on who it was going to be with the OC, and now Alabama has to focus on who they're going to get for the DC. I know a lot of people out there want to see Jeremy Pruitt. In my opinion, I think they're going to somehow bring Jeremy Pruitt on, and he's going to be in some sort of analyst position. And we're going to see what happens. So we're going to take our next caller. It's a 423, and we'll start that right now. Hello, you're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who are we on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
My name is Matt from Tennessee.
Hey, what's up, Matt? Good to hear from you today. What's your thoughts on Alabama's new OC hire?
I think it's a really good hire. In my opinion, I think what Saban and the staff are trying to get back to is more of a running power-based offense and adding into play action what we used to do. Seeing how Georgia is having so much success with pretty much doing the same thing, lining up heavy, running old school Alabama offense. Because the defenses of the day are pretty much stacked to combat the heavy spreads and more of your pinball offenses back and forth, and they're just having a lot of trouble stopping the run. So I think Tommy Rees can execute that offense very well, actually. Why wouldn't he with the running backs we have?
And that's a good point, because I think when you look to the running backs that are coming back, I think all of these guys can carry the workload, so to speak, right? I think probably one of the more underrated running backs in college football, even over the last couple of years, is Jace McClellan. I mean, I'm a huge fan of him. And also, I mean, are you upset when Roydell Williams gets, when he's down in distance from the 1-yard line? No. Right. And you look at the way that Jamarian Miller had that run in the Sugar Bowl. Exactly. I mean, those are guys that you need to feed. And of course, you got some younger guys coming on behind them. But I wouldn't.
Justice Haynes, Richard Jones.
Yeah. And I don't think people are saying that they want a run heavy offense. I think that at times Bill O'Brien was vanilla, and I thought it was just too almost. It didn't allow for the weapons to really do their thing. Now I get it. The wide receivers aren't the wide receivers that we had in the past. It didn't seem as fluid as it's been over the last couple of seasons. So, and I think the last caller, James, brought up a good point that you had to make this hire based off the quarterbacks that were returning for Alabama.
Yep. And I think either one of them can run that scheme. I mean, pretty much, I mean, Blake Sims run that scheme. I mean, he run it great. If Milroe could get a little bit more accuracy with the deep ball, run the play action, and of course Ty Simpson could do it. So I think that scheme would work perfectly with what we have. And plus, bringing in the linemen, maybe your Caden Proctor, a couple of the new linemen. I mean, they should just plug right in, and I think we'll be fine. But with the defenses and stuff, I just didn't like seeing O'Brien. I mean, we come out in a spread, and I mean, coming out against heavy quarter, heavy dime defenses, we should be running the ball. I mean, 2 deep safeties, we should run the ball, especially in the red zone.
I think that there was times where, even on the sidelines, there was people being, I think Saban, I think Bryce Young, I think people were saying like, run the damn ball when you get, you're
Exactly.
just outside. I mean, It's not, don't overcomplicate it when you have a bowling ball and Roydell Williams, right? Like get him inside the end zone, period. All right. Like Cam Latu, great option. Okay. Maybe that's like 3rd and 7 or whatever. But when you're 2 yards out, feed the football to your running back. What else, Matt, before we let you go? Any other takes on Tommy Rees being hired as OC?
Well, I actually think if we scheme this right, we'll get a lot more than we think out of these receivers that we have coming back. I'm thinking with Isaiah Bond.
Yeah.
Especially running off of the play action, we could start hitting those deep crossers again, like we've seen. I mean, with Jameson and Mechie. And we've got the speed to do it.
All right, Matt. Well, hey, save the number. Call again next time when Alabama hires their DC. We'll be live. We appreciate you. And, thanks for liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel.
Thanks, man.
All right. Matt calling in from Tennessee. We're going to bring in Jimmy Stein. And we got 2 more callers in the queue. We got a 251 and a 919. So we're going all over. Jimmy, welcome to the show. Your take on Tommy Rees being named the OC at Alabama.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, really, in the sense that this wasn't a name that we had been discussing. This name had not come up, and on our boards. It was a name kind of off the radar. But now that it's done, in retrospect, this makes a lot of sense in many areas. Number one, I think Alabama fans that wanted the offense to become a little more physical, that wanted more of a commitment to the physical ground game.
Yep.
I think Tommy Rees, that's what he's going to bring. He's certainly going to bring that influence in terms of running the ball. And the first word, I think about what, in terms of what I know about Tommy Rees is tough. I mean, there's going to be some toughness that the offense, frankly, hasn't had in a couple of years. I think the arrival of Tommy Rees sort of jives up with these big offensive linemen that Alabama signed in the most recent classes. And again, he's going to be committed to running the football, and his quarterbacks are going to be tough. And the offense is going to be tough. So I think in those respects, it's very interesting. His age is interesting. This is a different hire, Kyle. Sark was a former head coach, real mature. Bill O'Brien, former NFL head coach, very mature, older guy. Lane Kiffin had been a head coach. Tommy Rees is extremely young. He's a 28-year-old offensive coordinator, 27-year-old actually, when he was hired at Notre Dame to be the OC, and now will be. I think he turns 31 this year. So this is just a much different hire than what Nick Saban had done the last few times around, and I think that's why, to some extent, we're all a little surprised.
Here with Jimmy Stein, a Bama Insider. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. Jimmy, you want to take a couple calls while we're on here?
Sure.
Right, let's see. I think you bring up a great point, Jimmy, in the age. And I think, as James was saying, our first caller was like, this was a name that when you bring in here, you got to be able to speak the language of today's college football. So I think you're kind of, reiterating what James said. But we're going to take our 251. Here we go. Hey, thanks for calling into the show. Who are we on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
This is Kendall from Mobile.
All right, Kendall, go ahead, man. Take it away.
Okay, so this hire is intriguing. By the way, I listen to y'all show all the time. Y'all got a great show. But this hire is intriguing because I paid attention to Notre Dame a little bit this year, considering who I wanted to lose so Alabama can have a path in the playoffs. And I remember watching the USC game and the Clemson game, and I watched them in the bowl game. They're a real physical team, and I know they didn't score a whole lot of points, but people got to consider he had a backup quarterback who, frankly, isn't that good. I mean, he was kind of reminding me of Cooper Bateman. Then they ran the ball a lot, so I like that commitment to the run. But I'd like to see what he looked like with the players we got at Alabama.
Jimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a good point here in terms of, look, Tommy Rees isn't coming to Alabama to run the Notre Dame offense. He's not going to be hired to bring your playbook from South Bend. We want to do what you're doing up there. We're going to learn all your terminology. That's not how it works with Nick Saban. So Tommy Rees is going to get here, and he's going to be handed Nick Saban's playbook. He's going to have to adapt to Alabama's terminology, to Alabama's playbook. Now he'll be himself. Nick Saban hired him due to, the traits that he showed at South Bend. So really what we're going to see in the Alabama offense is Tommy Rees blending what he brings to the table with what's already in the playbook here. So it's going to be a lot of Alabama, a lot of Nick Saban, and a little bit of Tommy Rees. So I think what you saw at Notre Dame, which is a commitment to a physical run game, maybe a quarterback that's not necessarily a pro-style downfield passer, but you will see a little bit of what he did at Notre Dame and a lot of what we've been doing at Alabama under Bill O'Brien and under Steve Sarkisian before him. It'll be a blend of all of it. But rest assured, I feel like this hire, the main impetus behind the hire, Kendall and Kyle, really is, I think Nick Saban wants to be more physical on offense, and that's why he's bringing in Tommy Rees to make Alabama more physical, but at the same time, it's still going to be Nick Saban's Alabama offense.
Can you imagine a more physical Jalen Milroe, right? He's already out there looking like Derrick Henry. We just need to get him to be able to slide instead of doing the helicopters when going in the end zone. On the line with Kendall from Mobile, Alabama, calling the show 205-850-1994. Alabama has hired Tommy Rees as the new offensive coordinator. Jimmy brings up the great point that he's only 30 years of age. When you look to the past OCs, you had Bill O'Brien, much older than now, Steve Sarkisian, the head football coach at Texas. Saw a graphic today that Texas put out of their new coaching staff, 4 of their coaches formerly at Alabama. Kendall, do you agree with that? Would you like to see kind of a more physically imposing offense? I mean, we talked about Jace McQuillan. We talked about the bowling ball of Roydell Williams. What's your take on kind of that more physicality, from the offensive approach?
Oh, I like it, and I like the way Saban recruited, especially on the line. Yeah, we need to get back to being more physical. I'm one of the few Alabama fans who don't think Bill O'Brien did a horrible job. I mean, we averaged, 39.9 the year we went to the national championship, and 41.5 this year. He took a lot of the blame for the Tennessee loss and the LSU loss. He really wasn't that bad. I wish he'd have been on the sideline. And I'd like it, especially on the 1-yard line. Don't line up a shotgun. But then again, we have Bryce Young, who's being compared to Patrick Mahomes. So, and then another question is, do y'all think Tommy Rees is going to be on the sideline?
Go ahead, Jimmy.
My initial guess is no. And by the way, Kendall, I don't disagree with you at all about a couple of points you made. I think Bill O'Brien did a good job at Alabama. Look, if it's not about points, I don't know what this is about. I mean, when you're the offensive coordinator, it's about scoring points. And when Bill O'Brien was the offensive coordinator at Alabama during those 2 years, only Ohio State scored more points than Alabama in those 2 years that Bill O'Brien was the OC at Alabama. I think he did a good job, especially coaching around injuries, even the injury to Bryce this season. And I'm with Kendall in the sense that I just have a personal preference that the quarterback coach, not necessarily the OC, but the quarterback coach is on the sidelines. So, obviously Tommy Rees is going to be both OC and quarterback coach. So I have a preference that he be on the sidelines. Nick Saban leaves it up to the OC, says, where do you want to be? Where do you think you're most effective?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Tommy Rees was in the booth at Notre Dame upstairs leads me to guess that Tommy Rees is going to prefer being upstairs. And I like how Saban allows the OC to kind of choose, and it's not, hey, you got to fit what I'm doing. You can, Nick just lets him choose. I think the fact that Rees was in the booth at Notre Dame is probably indicative of where he'll be at Alabama.
Hey, Kendall, thank you very much for calling, man. Save the number. Call in next time when Alabama hires their DC. We appreciate your support from beautiful Mobile, Alabama, and stay in touch with us. Give this video a like if you can.
Okay, roll tide.
Yeah, roll tide to you, buddy. All right, that's Kendall down in Mobile, Alabama. We'll get to our next two callers. We got a 919 and a 404 in the queue. Call into the show, 205-850-1994. Alabama's hired Tommy Rees as the next OC. I mean, any other takeaways, Jimmy, when you kind of look at this from the larger perspective? I mean, this just happened. Of course, there's dust that's going to settle. We're going to be on our big Alabama group chain kind of going back and forth. But, you know, with the tight end play, a lot of people were happy about that. But kind of speaking today's language, we've talked about that. The quarterback development is something that is super important, especially when you lose Alex Mortensen, you lose AJ Milwee, you lose Steve Sarkisian, now you lose Bill O'Brien. So Tommy Rees coming over and kind of taking over that quarterback room, super important. What are some other takeaways that stand out to you?
Yeah, quarterback development's huge when you have, you know, what amounts to a red shirt, you know, a sophomore like Jalen Milroe and a freshman like Ty Simpson, not to mention the two true freshmen that have just arrived that are early entry guys. It's critical that these guys are developed. Now, Tommy has a reputation for being tough on his quarterbacks. I think he's hard on his quarterbacks. And our guys, you know, the Alabama guys, they're going to have to adapt to that. You know, Bill O'Brien was pretty tough on his quarterbacks, to be honest. But Tommy Rees has that reputation, really tough on the quarterbacks. He hopes that the offense sort of toughens up and sort of becomes a part of his personality. Here's an interesting thing, and I'm far from predicting any sort of an outcome here, Kyle, but here's something kind of interesting. Notre Dame had a quarterback competition last season before settling on Tyler Buchner. It was Tyler Buchner versus Drew Pine in the offseason. And here's something that's funny. Kyle Buchner, sort of similar. Tyler Buchner, sort of similar, Kyle, to Jalen Milroe. He's kind of a run-first guy, real young quarterback, great athlete, kind of a run-first quarterback, and his passing game sort of in development, whereas Drew Pine was sort of a pass-first quarterback, a spread guy, athletic, sure, but really a pass-first, let's throw it 40, 50 times, let me roll out in the pocket and make a play. So Drew Pine, in so many ways, similar to Ty Simpson. Tyler Buchner, similar to Jalen Milroe. And interestingly, Tommy Rees and the Notre Dame staff went with the runner, Tyler Buchner, as their choice to start the season. Then Buchner would later get injured. Drew Pine would have to quarterback most of the season for Notre Dame due to the injury to Buchner. But it's just sort of kind of funny to me, a little coincidental that last year Notre Dame had, you know, two guys vying for the spot who when you describe them, sort of sound a little bit like Milroe and Simpson. So Tommy Rees right back in that same cauldron again.
Okay, I'm about to start a fire here. Okay, Jimmy, does Sam Hartman somehow come to Alabama? Is he needed to? A lot of fans inside the comment box, Milroe. There's the Simpson group, and of course, you know, you got the two talented freshmen. I'm just saying, you know, I could see this breaking the internet somehow. Sam Hartman follows Tommy Rees to Tuscaloosa. We got our callers. Hang tight. We'll get to you in just a second. But Jimmy, your take on that, blow up scenario?
Yeah, I doubt it. I mean, my initial reaction is I really doubt that it happens. And I say that as a fan of Sam Hartman. I've seen Sam play a lot the last couple seasons. He's a talented kid. He's a really good college quarterback. I feel like he's probably one of the 10 or 12 best college quarterbacks out there going into his final season. And this year, transferring to Notre Dame, good passer, pretty good athlete, veteran. But a couple things. Number one, look, we're already into the semester. I don't think Sam Hartman could transfer until this semester is over because he couldn't enroll at Alabama in time. So I don't think he could transfer till May at the earliest. That's one point. Secondly, you know, in this day and age when it's so easy to get into the portal, I would caution Alabama or anyone else. I mean, when Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe believe they're battling for the starting job, and you bring in a veteran, if you bring in Sam Hartman's going to be the starter. You're not bringing in Sam to back up Ty or Jalen. I mean, Sam would be the senior starter. If you bring in Sam, you need to be prepared for Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe to walk out the door, which isn't an ideal scenario in the short term or the long term for Alabama. So that's one more reason. Third, Sam Hartman was in the portal. And while I think he had his heart set on Notre Dame before he ever got in the portal, that was my read on it. It didn't appear to me Alabama had a ton of interest in Hartman. So I'm going to say this isn't going to happen. But Tommy Rees knows Sam. He obviously likes Hartman's game, and Tommy Rees will have a lot to do with the ultimate answer to that question. But my guess for right now is no, that's not going to happen.
All right, we're going to take our next caller. It's a 919. We'll start right now. Hey, good afternoon. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Jimmy Stein, a Bama Insider. Who are we on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
This is Harrison Patton from the great University of Alabama.
Oh, man, thank you so much. I already love the energy. Go ahead, take it away. Tommy Rees hired as the OC.
Absolutely. Hey, Kyle, I'm a longtime fan, first-time caller. So I was just wondering if you thought that we had the tight end depth to run the offense that we saw him run at Notre Dame. Obviously, we just got a brand new transfer from C.J. Dupree from Maryland. Do you think we'll dip back into the portal to add another on top of Oots?
Jimmy, take that.
Yeah, Harrison, what a great point. Obviously, you've seen Notre Dame play, right? So you've seen Tommy Rees basically wore out Michael Mayer, their outstanding tight end, Baby Gronk. I think they call him up at Notre Dame. Great player. Alabama doesn't have a Baby Gronk, to be honest. I mean, C.J. Dupree, I think, is an upgrade to what Alabama had at the Y position. You know, the tight end that's very similar to Michael Mayer that lines up, you know, at the line of scrimmage next to the tackle. I think Dupree is an upgrade, but he's not Michael Mayer. Now, what I think Alabama has, guys, at tight end, which Tommy Rees is going to like, is a nice mix and match. I think there'll be up to 4 tight ends that play a lot with the first team. 2 Ys in C.J. Dupree, the transfer from Maryland, and Miles Kitzelman, who played some last year as a JUCO transfer. And then 2 H's, guys that you know you might call move tight ends that offensive coordinators get fascinated with. It's fun to move them around and create matchups. Alabama will have 2 H's that have experience playing with the first team, and that's Robbie Oost and Amari Nablack. I think myself, Tommy Rees is going to become enamored with Nablack and what he can do. He's such a fun toy that you could move around and get matchups. So I think there are parts of the tight end room that he will really like. He's going to be a little disappointed if he's showing up looking for another Michael Mayer. There's not one of those on the roster. They're few and far between. But you can bet with his experience with Michael Mayer, it's going to be important it's going to be important for in recruiting in the next class for Tommy Rees to locate a guy like Mayer and introduce him to Alabama offense.
Yeah, I think those are great points. You know, Michael Mayer did a great job for Notre Dame, got me a ton of points when I played DraftKings, by the way. So I think when you look to the tight end play, I think you bring up 2 good points, Jimmy. I think number 1, Amari Niblack. If you don't know about Niblack, you're going to know about him eventually because the young man has a ton of talent. I can't wait for him to really be utilized somehow, and I hope he does because I think he hit the sky's the limit for him. And then how great was it to see Robbie Oots when he would just come out of the backfield, made a couple catches. He's a big man. He's like 260 or something like that to bring down. So Alabama has hired Tommy Rees. Ron, was it Harrison? Was that right? From Harrison from Alabama?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I've got one more.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Shoot. Yeah.
So on Twitter, there's all these videos of Tommy's offense, that bowl game against South Carolina. They're motioning here, motioning back, and it kind of reminded me of what Sark did to us in Austin this year. Is that a comparable deal? And will we see some more kind of Sark lane type concepts and us taking deep shots down the field like we did with them?
Yeah, sure, Harrison. We got to remember everything is still in the playbook. It's the Nick Saban playbook. Tommy Rees will inherit Nick Saban's playbook. He won't bring his own, and we throw everything out. He will morph what he does and what he likes to do into what is in the Alabama playbook. There's a really good chance that Tommy Rees is going to look back, not just at the Bill O'Brien offense, but the Sark offense, the Lane offense, find things that he likes, that he's comfortable with, bringing his own style, which is a lot of physicality, yes, a lot of motion, a lot of alignments. There will be new things. I think all of us, Harrison obviously watches a lot of football. There will be a lot of things that we see from the stands and on our TV screens that'll be kind of new to Alabama fans that have been used to watching the Bill O'Brien offense for 2 years. But we just have to always remember this is not really the Bill O'Brien offense. It's not really the Tommy Rees offense. It's Nick Saban's, and everything that will be done, while it might look new, there might be a tweak. There might be more motion. There might be something that looks a little bit more like what Sark did. But frankly, I think I'll go a little old school here. Now, we might remember, I think the offense that's really going to appeal to Tommy Rees the most in terms of what Alabama's done is the 2015 offense, where Lane kept a lot of the same spread concepts that he had done the year before with Blake Sims, but Alabama had Derrick Henry at running back. And that's a physical offense. It was a downhill, we're going to run it at you with Derrick a bunch. And Alabama somehow maintained a balance between being real physical in the run game with Derrick Henry, but keeping a lot of the spread concepts they had done the year before with Blake.
Jimmy, we don't have a Derrick Henry.
Something similar to what Alabama did.
Jason's the physical black back, but we don't have a Derrick.
No, that's true. That's true. But there is no Derrick Henry. But Jace McClellan's more physical than the back that primarily played last year. And you're going to see this fall a lot of Jamarian Miller and the two freshman backs who are physical backs. They're not big like Derrick, but they are physical between the tackles runners, Justice Haynes and Richard Young both. Again, Jace a little more physical than Gibbs. I agree that it's not anything like Derrick. Jamarian Miller is a physical between the tackles back. So I think there'll be enough physicality in the running back room to do that. Will it look exactly like Derrick Henry? Of course not, because there's not too many 6'3", 240-pound backs, out there. But,
well, you got a quarterback who's pretty much that same size. Harrison, we got to run to our next caller, man, but we appreciate you chiming in.
I got one more call. I got one more question.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead. All right, we'll take it.
All right. Now, Tommy Rees, do we think that he is trying to sabotage Alabama after 2020? That was the best quarterback in Notre Dame history in Ian Book, and they fell short of the championship in the playoff game. Do you think Tommy Rees, by any chance, being a Notre Dame guy, he's trying to sabotage Alabama offense?
No, I don't think that. I think if Alabama ever, Jeremy Pruitt was a Tennessee.
Right. We're just making sure. Good deal. Roll Tide, fellas.
All right, man. Take it easy. All right. I love the call, though. Got to end it with that, with the good one. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. You can find all our content back on Bama Insider. Jimmy Stein does a great job along with Clint Lamb, Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings. It's like, the roster is so deep. And today the news is out that Alabama's hired Tommy Rees as the OC, 30 years of age, will take over Alabama's dynamic group of that talented offensive roster that we can't wait to see here next month. We'll take another call from the 404 starting right now. Hey, thanks for being patient. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Jimmy Stein, both the Bama Insider. Where are you calling from, and who are we on the line with?
Kyle, thanks for taking my call. This is Al Sanders from Dallas, Georgia.
Oh, man, I love – it's been a minute since we've rapped, man, so thank you very much for calling in the show.
Yeah. Look, great show as always, and thank you for taking my call. And I'm loving the hire, by the way, and all the dialogue you and Jimmy are putting down. This is point on. But I want to take a little bit different stance, and I like referencing back. I'm born and raised in Tuscaloosa, by the way, so I bleed crimson. But the 2015 offense, there was one thing, if you peel a layer back a little bit, I'd like to bring up Eric Wolford, okay, our O-line coach, all right, and what his mentality is as far as an O-line coach, but where the money is made in the power game is right now in the fourth quarter, okay, and we had Scott Cochran. So our approach to lifting, powerlifting, the power game was a whole different approach, strength and conditioning, and that's where the run game is born out of, strength and conditioning up front, power guys. So I think nothing's been said about that in the public forum, about what Nick's doing about that approach to things, but you got to have power to run the power game. So I watched our schemes this year. We just wasn't getting much push up front. Whether we was running a G scheme, I didn't see a lot of double teams up front to try to move guys and tumble off and create spaces like that. We just didn't, O'Brien just didn't do a lot of that. And some of that might have been from just how we play offense with Bryce. So I like to look at it a little bit deeper than that, than what O'Brien was not calling, and what I think it goes back to getting the guys up front where they can actually push, where they can actually move people. So that's one thing I wanted to bring to the table today in the conversation. Okay.
All right, Jimmy, what's your take there? And by the way, we're also going to bring in Clint Lamb as we kind of exit on through our staff, and hopefully we can have Andrew Bone kind of jump in for the slam dunk. But welcome Clint Lamb to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Jimmy, your feedback.
Yeah, sure. I think Al made a really good point. My take on that is, I think when Bryce Young was your quarterback, Alabama, Nick Saban, and Bill O'Brien smartly built everything around Bryce. What does Bryce do best? How can we best take advantage of what Bryce does? And maybe there wasn't the time spent, maybe there wasn't the effort, maybe there wasn't the game plan built on being powerful in the run game and moving people off the line of scrimmage and double teams and that sort of thing, which they're capable of teaching and doing. I just think it was just sort of built around Bryce. And now that the two likely quarterbacks, Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe, they're both athletic kids themselves. Neither have a lot of experience. You're going to want to run the football more with Jalen Milroe, especially, and even Ty Simpson as a way to take some pressure off those guys. With Wolford as the offensive line coach and what he was able to do with the ground game in Kentucky, what Tommy Rees does in terms of the physicality of his offense, in terms of our 180-pound back, Jahmyr Gibbs has moved on, and we have a more physical back in Jace McClellan taking over the running back one role with a backup like Jamarian Miller, with these freshmen who are so fit. Everything to me screams Alabama's going to make a concerted effort to get back to running the football this fall. And I think it'll all work together, and I think it'll be schemed together. And I think the combination of Tommy Rees plus Eric Walford plus that running back room, it just screams to me, hey, this is going to be what it looks like. What Alabama has to be careful about, it's still 2023. Don't give up or don't abandon the explosive play from wide receivers outside. Rees didn't really have that in his toolbox at Notre Dame. There weren't a lot of playmaking wide receivers. He'll have that at Alabama. What he's charged with, Al, and guys, Tommy Rees has to make all these parts work into one cohesive offense. But you can bet there will be more between the tackles, physical run game than what we've seen in Tuscaloosa in a while.
Hey, Al, hold on. We're going to transition Jimmy out, and then we'll bring on Clint. We got our whole staff, the full court press. Jimmy, go take care of the message board. If you aren't a part of the Bama Insider message board, go on there. These guys drop great scoop, great nuggets. I mean, we've been all over this, and you can be a part of Bama Insider. So go check out Bama Insider. If you're not already a member, definitely go check it out. Jimmy, we appreciate your expert analysis. It's always good to rap with you. I love having you on, man. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And now we go to Clint Lamb. Hey, Clint, welcome, man. And we're on with Al. Let's let Al give another question in, and then we'll start some dialogue. Al, go ahead, man. What else you got?
Yeah, just a couple of things here. In Georgia, Justice Haynes is someone I'm very familiar with. I was in a program coaching where he was playing ball coming up and in high school. And we ran an ISO scheme. And this kid, I'm telling you, he has balance. He gets small in the hole. He can make people miss in tight spaces. Far be it for me to put him in this category, but he reminds me of a running back that played for the Gators, who went on to play for the Cowboys, who had a very long career. Of a guy who had tremendous balance and vision in the holes, fast twitch, can catch it, can do it all, very balanced attack. I think Haynes is going to be a tremendous player at Alabama in the scheme that I think we'll eventually get to. But one other thing I want to make about the QB situation, and having done that and coached that position for a long time, you have to develop that position. Okay. And I think bringing Tommy Rees in is outstanding, because having a guy that plays Q and knowing what that takes between the years. A lot of times we make about the two young guys coming up about their physical assets. But what I really want to see is, can they process? Okay. Can they lead? Can they get us in plays just like Jalen Hurts did against the 49ers? Jalen put the Eagles in great running situations. He was checking off, and he didn't have to do it with his arms. So the quarterback position is about leading the team, and which one of these guys are going to do that, regardless of what skill set? They both got similar skill sets. But it's going to come back down to what Eric Wolfer can do, what Tommy Rees can do, and more importantly, what the strength conditioning coach and those guys can do with the guys up front. That's where it starts. It stops right there. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Hey, Al, we're going to run to our next caller. I'm going to bring Clint on, man, but thank you so much for the dialogue. Call again next time when Alabama hires their DC.
Absolutely.
All right, man. That was Al, who bleeds Crimson. Hey, Clint, welcome to the show, man. Give us your initial take on Tommy Rees, the OC, and then maybe hit on some of the fact that Al hit on. I love kind of the power game approach, maybe coming to Alabama. Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely think that getting back to more of a power run style of offense, right? You know, I feel like at times we talk about balance offensively. It's not always balance in the sense of, okay, we're calling 50% pass, 50% run. That's not necessarily what you always mean when you refer to balance offensively. It's, can we throw the football effectively, and can we run the football consistently and effectively? And that's something I think from the consistency standpoint that Alabama has kind of lacked. You know, granted, in some ways, Brian Robinson was kind of that hammer, but he didn't really bring the explosiveness to the offense. You know, Jahmyr Gibbs was kind of the polar opposite. He was going to provide a lot of that explosiveness, and he was going to create a lot of explosive plays where he rips off big gains, but you didn't see the consistency as far as snap to snap, down to down, being able to consistently move the football on the ground. Now, that's not just Jahmyr Gibbs. That's mixing that skill set and that talent level and what he actually brings to the table as a running back with Alabama's offensive line. So I think right now the emphasis is more so on being able to run the football with more consistency when you need to in football games, because when you're able to do that, you not only control the football game, you can shorten it if you want to. You can take pressure off your quarterback. You can take pressure off your defense. I also think that that's really key with this hire is when you want to play or go more ball control, you have the ability to do that, which, you know, if your defense needs a break and needs a rest, you know, you feel like that you can take some minutes off the clock, give them the rest they need, and then, you know, you're able to maintain and balance, you know, game script and things like that. So I think that taking this route like Alabama's choosing to do, you know, a lot of people's been upset at me because I've compared it to Georgia and they don't want to be compared to Georgia. I think we can acknowledge when someone else has kind of figured something out. And I think everybody, myself included, thought with where the game is currently heading, college football in general, you know, the ability to be able to win football games with your defense and being able to run the football being the key factors in how, whether you win or lose, that we thought that was going away. Georgia's proven that, you know, to a certain degree, it needs to be modernized, but you can still win football games in that way. And I think that once Alabama realized that, it's like, hey, that's kind of where we want to be. That's what we're comfortable doing. And I think Tommy Rees is kind of, you know, trying to get back to that a little bit.
Alabama's hired Tommy Rees as the OC, on with Clint Lamb of Bama Insider. Definitely go check out Clint Lamb's great work back at Bama Insider. We're taking a couple calls. 205-850-1994 is the call-in line on this beautiful Friday, February 3rd. We're going to take another caller. Clint, you up for it? We've got a 380 and a 703. We're all over the place today. We'll start with a 380 right now. Hey, thanks for calling into the show. You're on with Kyle Henderson and Clint Lamb. Thanks for being patient. Who are we on the line with and where are you calling in from?
Hey, Kyle, what's up, man? This is Coach Green out of Columbus, Ohio. How you doing, man?
Hey, we appreciate you calling from the Midwest, man. Hope you're staying warm as we move kind of through into February. Your thoughts on Tommy Rees being named the OC at Bama? Go ahead.
Well, you know, it was a little chilly here, but I've been waiting on the announcement of the OC. I'm not a fan of the hire, man. I hear everybody's trying to justify, I know it's Saban's offense, but I'm not a fan of the hire. Guy got probably 8 years of experience. I think Alabama's going to do more for him than what he's going to do for Alabama. I mean, I've never heard of Tommy Rees, you know, being able to scheme up to get people open. Nobody fears Notre Dame offense. I mean, how many first-round quarterbacks have he developed? like, what is this guy known for? I know it's Saban's offense. I mean, I know we got great players. It kind of reminds me of the first hire that Saban had. What was the guy out of Major Applewhite out of Texas when he first came in? Like, the guy, he called plays at Texas, his alma mater, for several years, and he came over. And, Alabama old coordinator is a big, big job. So I think we're going to do more for him than he's going to be able to do for us. But I'm not a fan of the hire, man. I just, there's nothing about him. The last coordinators we had, Bill O'Brien, former head coach, NFL, Sark, first-round quarterbacks at USC, Lane, first-round quarterbacks at USC. Like, these recruits come to the school because their old coordinator has done some things in the past. Like, what has this guy done?
Clint, I guess I
Somebody
haven't. I guess I haven't asked Clint. I mean, we just got you on the show. By the way, great call. I appreciate the feedback. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, it's all good dialogue. I want to dive into it. I really haven't even wrapped my head around it, to be honest. I mean, the guy's a young guy. I think you bring up some great points. I think he has a lot to. He has to prove himself. But I haven't even asked you, Clint. Do you like the hire? What's your initial take on Tommy Rees being hired as the OC?
I do like the hire, because I kind of see where Alabama's wanting to go with it. First of all, a lot of your dynamic offensive minds, the Josh Heupels of the world, the Jeff Lebbys, the Lane Kiffin, the Steve Sarkisian, a lot of those guys are being hired into head coaching roles, and they've already got premier jobs and things like that. So you really are trying to figure out, okay, who is somebody that you can target that you can go that route, and there are plenty of options if they would have wanted to have gone that route. But I think that it all comes down to don't kind of remove the name, like Tommy Rees, like just forget about the name. What is Nick Saban trying to do with the hire of offensive coordinator? I think he wants to be able to run the football more consistently. We've talked about that. I think he wants to be able to get back to having an elite defense that you can play off of. I think he wants to get back to being able to go play action off of things. I think he wants to get back to being able to go under center in short yardage situations where you don't have to worry about, already putting yourself at a disadvantage by being in shotgun. These are things that, okay, it's like, okay, if that is kind of where the Alabama wants to go, if that's where Georgia has found a lot of its success, and we can talk about the success of Josh Heupel and Lane Kiffin and all these great offensive-minded guys. Kyle, who's won the last two national championships, who's gone back-to-back and been fairly dominant. Granted, you could talk about scheduling or whatever. They just beat a team 60-something to like 14 or whatever the final score was in the national championship game. We've never seen anything like that. And did he do it? Did Georgia do it with, a Josh Heupel style of, high-powered offense? No, they hammered the football at TCU. They played Stetson Bennett off of that. Let's not act like that you can't have a modern style of offense with a lot of those kind of core principles, right? I mean, you saw it with Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is a former walk-on quarterback who went to New York as a Heisman finalist after throwing for over 4,000 yards while you're still playing elite defense and you're still running the football with consistency with a very nice, big physical offensive line and a stable of running backs. And so I personally think if that's what you're trying to get back to, Tommy Rees isn't proven in that area necessarily. I also, going back and watching, I was impressed with what he did with Ian Book. Ian Book was a former 3-star quarterback, didn't have a whole lot of attention coming out of high school. He was undersized. He didn't have great arm strength, and he turned him into a, semi-Heisman, trophy contender. And he had Notre Dame and, helping them get to the college football playoff. And granted, you run up against Alabama, and I think that with the way that they recruit, especially at receiver, they're not going to target necessarily those undersized guys that are going to be able to create separation to their route running. That's not how they win. They've had a lot of success with the bigger, more physical receivers. But when you go against an Alabama style of defense who can match that physicality and size on defense, you're kind of, in a lot of situations, you're kind of left at a disadvantage. And I think Notre Dame's run into that. At Alabama, I think he's going to have access to a lot more talent, premier talent. And on top of that, you're also going to see a whole new, style of receiver that he didn't have at Notre Dame either.
By the way, before we take your next question, caller, I didn't get your first name, so I'm big on being like first name basis. So can you repeat your name, please?
It's Marcus Green. Everyone called me Coach Green. And
all right,
I want to go back.
All right.
I mean, he made some good points.
Mm-hmm.
Can I go? Or
yeah, of course, yeah.
No, I'm saying he made some good points, and it all goes back to the style of play that we want to implement, which he could bring in. He can hire the receiver coach to do that. I just don't think Rees has been proven. like you're talking about Georgia. Georgia offensive coordinator been in the NFL probably 10 years. He's been a head coach. He's got 30 years of offensive coordinator experience. I'm talking about the lack of experience this guy brings to the table. Obviously, he's going to grow into the position, but I want someone to bring in some ideas that's going to be able to take Alabama to the next level. So I don't know. I mean, I'll reserve. I know Saban, he knows what he wants. If he wanted to do that, he can just hire one of his wide receiver coaches to implement that. I don't see him bringing anything to the table. He hasn't developed any first-round quarterback. I know Notre Dame is, at a disadvantage as far as recruiting, but I'm just used to the other hires. Like I said, look at the last 5 offensive coordinators that Bama's had. Sark and Lane has had guys at first-rounders at USC. They've been head coaches. Rees haven't been anywhere outside of Notre Dame. He hadn't been to the NFL. He hadn't coached. He hadn't been a head coach. He hasn't coached at another program. So that's just my point. I mean, I'm a reserve judgment, but I'm not a fan of that.
Hey, Coach Green, well, we appreciate you calling in either way, man. Thanks for the feedback. I like the dialogue, to be honest. I mean, it's an interesting hire, right? I mean, the dude is 30 years old. So you go from Bill O'Brien, who's going back to the NFL for the New England Patriots at the OC, and you're hiring a 30-year-old. I get it, right? Where were you when you were 30 years old? I mean, credit to Tommy Rees for landing a gig like this. Hey, Coach Green, call again next time. Obviously, we're going to be live next time Alabama hires the DC. We appreciate your feedback. Stay blessed. Stay warm up in Ohio, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Take care, man.
All right. That was yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I don't mind hearing the other side of things, right? I mean, because when I first heard that he was a possibility, I didn't like it much either. And then you really start trying to get into why? That is a big question that a lot of people are asking, like, oh, this guy hadn't had a ton of success offensively at Notre Dame. He's a young guy. Like, what's the appeal? And then you start realizing, okay, I understand where he's going with it. And sometimes it's Nick Saban, when we look back, it'll be in a lot of national championships and stuff. But if the only thing you're doing is always going to get the established former NFL head coach or former college coach or former, offensive guru, how much developing on the coaching front did you actually do? We saw him develop Kirby into what he is. We saw him develop some of these other coaches. Offensively, it didn't really work out to the degree that Bama fans wanted to with Pete Golding, but now it's a chance for him to kind of mold an offensive-minded guy in the way that he wants to. And I think that Tommy Rees is very well thought of amongst coaching circles. There's a reason LSU wanted him too. I mean, he's a good offensive mind. I think he has a lot more available as far as resources and talent in Tuscaloosa.
I think from the age perspective, look, how old are you, Clint?
32.
Okay, 32, right? So you're in that grind, that dog mentality. When I was 30 years old, you couldn't stop me, right? So it's like that mentality because you're energized. You do have some work experience. I mean, he's been with Notre Dame. He played the game, right? So he has that energy to keep up with that level. So I think when you look to a 30-year-old, sometimes you're like, okay, what are they bringing to the table? What they might lack in experience, like you just said, you're able to mold them, and they have that mentality, that dog mentality to just push forward. I mean, when you work at Alabama, it's a 24/7 gig that you're never going to stop. So I like it from that mindset. And I think you bring up another great point is he has a chance to mold him in what he wants to be. And it's not Tommy Rees' playbook that's coming on, like Jimmy said. He's learning the Alabama playbook. We're going to take another caller from the 703, and we'll start right now. Hey, thank you very much for being patient. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Clint Lamb, a Bama Insider. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Jay. I'm calling from Northern Virginia. I am Bama in VA on Tide fans. It's probably my third time to call in. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. It's been a great Friday. Take it away. Give us your take on Tommy Rees being hired as the OC.
So, kind of listening to you guys, give your analysis on what you think to the table. To me, everything is going to start on an offensive line play. And I just wonder if we've got the horses in the trenches to get the job done. I believe we've lost a lot of physicality over the, last couple of years, not only on the O-line, but also the D-line. And we've got to get back to dominating the line of scrimmage. And we might be a work in progress for years. I wonder if we've got the right horses in the house now for O-line.
Clint, I mean, give him. We appreciate the call, Clint. Give him the rundown, and this is an interesting point too, because when you look to the offensive line and what Eric Wolford went out and recruited, I mean, Clint, tell him about the guys who are coming in. I mean, they're absolutely monsters.
Yeah, I mean the size. I mean, you could tell, and this is why the more I looked at it, the more I started to think to myself, okay, I'm getting away from Nick Saban maybe thinking that he wants to go the Josh Heupel route, and it's more of the Todd Monken route, as far as just the style of player, the style of offense, things like that. Um, and I do think they have some dogs in that offensive line room. We saw Tyler Booker; he's the most physical offensive lineman, and that includes like an Evan Neal player. Evan Neal was one of the most physically impressive players that I've ever seen from just a talent and natural skill set. I don't think he had quite the dog mentality that a Tyler Booker's got. I mean, I went back and watched him. He is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I think Elijah Pritchett brings a lot of that very physical, very just kind of that nasty mentality that you want from an offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
I think Caden Proctor brings that. I think several of these young guys bring it. And so now, granted, I'm just like everybody else. I worry about the depth. I mean, you've had, a mass exodus. I mean, you had maybe I think 7 or 8 offensive linemen leave, whether it be through the NFL graduation or, to the transfer portal. You bring in, 5? So you've probably lost out on 2 or 3, and you're kind of wondering where they're going to replenish that depth. Especially since the second signing period is kind of come and gone. So it's probably going to have to be the transfer portal. But if you're wanting to give those young guys opportunities to earn a role or a job, then you might not want to, bring in somebody that's expecting to play or start who's a good player, but doesn't have the chance. They don't have the same ceiling as some of these young guys that you got. And I think in the past, whether it be a Chris Owens, no offense to him, think he was a great player, think he was all in with Alabama, a Kendall Randolph style of player like they try to do at the beginning of this past season. What you've got is stability, and you kind of knew what you were going to get from a guy, but the ceiling is very cat. Like these are 5th and 6th year players.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are who they are. With a Tyler Booker, they start playing him more as the season continues to progress. And I really think that, by the end of the year, the offensive line was substantially better because they had gone through, I don't think Tyler Booker had a ton of growing pains early. But when you look at, LSU had the same mentality with their 2 offensive tackles. It was 2 true freshmen, and their mentality was we can maybe get more steadiness at the position by going with a more veteran guy. But we would rather go through those growing pains, throw them out there, let them grind. Like I think Alabama's offensive line would have been a lot better at the end of 2021 had Alabama not started Chris Owens at right tackle. They would have went ahead and gone to a guy like J.C. Latham, let him go through some of the early struggles, let him kind of get beat up a little bit. But then I think he learns from that kind of thing. You saw it a lot with, DJ Fluker back in the day. He was a redshirt freshman who wasn't really ready in 2010 when he got thrown out there, and he looked pretty poor early on. By the end of the year, he was flowing, man. I mean, he looked great. So I think that's kind of the mentality Alabama wants to take is let some of those young guys get plenty of opportunities to earn a job. There's a ton of talent. And see where your offensive line's at by the end of the year. And I think that it would definitely be better than you've seen the last couple of years.
We're on with Jay from Virginia. I used to live in Alexandria, by the way. So what else, Jay, is on your mind when you kind of look to Tommy Rees? You got one more question before we move on to our next caller.
Well, great. Thank you for that. So I live just down the road from Alexandria. I live in Dumfries, if you know where that is.
Oh, yeah. You know where I used to live at Braddock Station.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Braddock Station. You're
blue and yellow line.
About,
yeah.
20 miles from me. But the second question is that from the physicality side, do we have a strength and conditioning staff on hand right now to basically change the direction that we've been going? So I'm kind of curious about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that you've got the right guy. Granted, I think that they've put a huge emphasis in recent years on, functional strength and really trying to, you've seen a lot of offensive linemen, Emil Ikior Jr., Jaden Roberts was another one. I mean, there's been plenty that I could rattle off where it's like they completely reshape their bodies to try to survive in more of that athletic, style of play that they were moving towards. Now you still want the athletes, but you also don't want to lose anything as far as power and just brute strength. And so I think that as that becomes the emphasis again, and you've recruited that style of player, I mean, when you bring in Miles McVay, he's 375 pounds. Like he's going to have to lose not only weight, but pretty substantial weight. Like he probably needs to be in that 340, 345, 335 kind of range. So, he's going to have some work to do, just like Jaheim Otis did on the defensive line last year. But, I think that it's not about getting him down to 315 or 310 or something like that in order to make him, to be able to survive in like that zone blocking scheme where you've got to be really athletic and get out on guys and get them reached and stuff like that. So I think as the emphasis changes and the philosophy changes offensively, what they're going to be asking of their strength and conditioning program and the coaches that are involved with that is going to change as well. And so I think they're going to be just fine as far as getting that, accomplished.
Hey, Jay, well, thank you very much for calling into the show. We appreciate your support from Virginia. Please call again next time. Probably we'll be on live when Alabama hires their defensive coordinator. Have a fantastic weekend.
You too.
All right, that was Dre up in Virginia. We got a couple more callers, and I think we'll maybe we'll let the dust settle for a little while. Maybe we'll come back on Sunday or something like that to kind of rehash things. Clint, you up for taking a couple more calls?
I'm good with it. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, man, let's do it. All right, 770. Here we go. All right, happy Friday. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Clint Lamb. You could can you just turn down the audio in the background so there's no echo? I'll give you 2 seconds. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
This is Rambo calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Rambo, man, what's up, man? Thanks for calling in. I love the ATL, man. Take it away. What's your thoughts on Tommy Rees being named the OC?
I would most likely say I like him because he runs the ball, and that's what a lot of people been screaming about, and he don't really make the game harder than what it is. So I like that too. And then everyone wants to get an offensive coordinator that is well known or a recycled coordinator. I'm tired of seeing a coordinator that's known for doing something good, but he get fired from this place, and then he's at this college program, and then he's getting tossed around. You keep seeing the same coordinators taking different jobs at different programs. I want to try something different. Let's stop trying to run to get these same old burnt out coordinators. Let's try something new. Then he runs the offense how we used to do it. So, and then if you look at some of the games that Notre Dame was doing against Power 5 teams like Ohio State, he ran the ball, and that was Ohio State's weakness. I really seen Notre Dame like a little miniature SEC team. They had power, they ran the ball more than they threw it, and they had physical receivers on the outside. They didn't do the up tempo, and that's what Bama do not do. Yeah, Tennessee do it, but they don't. And then not only that, if you have chemistry more than just a super name, I would take chemistry over that. Wolford, he big, powerful linemen, and Rees, he runs the ball. I feel like those two are a good chemistry duo. You don't need the power name. If all the coordinators like to do the same thing, I feel like that matches it too. So I just want your take on that. How you feel about Wolford and Rees and the way he's putting the staff together and they're matching each other.
Clint?
100%. Yeah, I completely agree. And that brings up an excellent point. It's kind of zigging when everybody else is zagging, right? And I think that's something that's also helped Georgia be fairly effective and Alabama's been one of them. It's like they've been, you don't see the Courtney Upshaws out there on the edges anymore, right? You don't see the 275-pound edge. You do see a defensive lineman when you're going to get certain styles of offenses, but your outside linebackers are more, 235, 240, 245 pounds. And so, that's great. And when you've got guys who are great exterior pass rushers and things like that, that's fantastic when you're playing against an LSU style of offense or an Ole Miss style of offense or, Tennessee or whoever, the spread offenses that want to, you need athleticism to be able to combat that. And then you've kind of built your defense that way. And then you go up against a Georgia style of offense where it's like they're bigger, they're stronger, they're going to hammer the football at you. And you haven't really recruited or have the guys available to be able to stop that style of offense. And Georgia in this landscape of college football, they can control games effectively and consistently in that way. And so, I think that's something that's really going to help Alabama as well, is getting back to that style. It's not going triple option where it's like, okay, for this one particular week, we've got to prepare for this very unorthodox offense, but it's like the entire way that you've recruited and built your roster, especially defensively, it's vastly different than, a style of offense that you're going to be going against when you go against Georgia. And I think that Alabama kind of wants to get back to a little bit of that as well.
Rambo, get one more take in, man, before we let you go.
And the last thing I want to say about Mr. Rees is he's a coordinator that no one was really, I could say he was like a sleeper coordinator that no one was talking about. I see that Miami wanted him, LSU wanted him, and Oregon wanted him. So he must be doing something good for a lot of schools to want him, but nobody really put his name out there like that. And also, Alabama don't have a well-known superstar at wide receiver. We don't have a superstar at running back. We know of next year. We know McClellan, but he's not a superstar. We don't have a proven quarterback. We don't have a proven skill player nowhere. So why would you go get a Jeff Lebby and let him gunsling a quarterback like we already have Bryce Young there? I feel like if we would have had Bryce Young for another 2 years, I feel like Nick would have still went the route with the Tua and Bryce Young way. But the fact that he do not have a proven quarterback, why is you finna go out there, go get Jeff Lebby, have him sling it 30, 40 times, and you know it's going to be some growing pains, and I feel like it's going to be more interceptions than touchdowns if you do that, because neither one of the quarterbacks are proven. So I'm really kind of glad that Nick Saban do that, because Jeff Lebby was going to turn him into a gunslinger, and it was going to be more growing pains. I would rather have McClellan get 200 yards than the quarterback throw 2 picks in 180 yards. I would rather do that, because in crunch time, we're going to depend on the quarterback than the run game. But if we would do the run ball, we'll be better off. So that was my main take on it. I like to hire, run the ball, do a little throwing here and there. Don't have a proven quarterback. So the chemistry good with the staff. So I like what he's doing. Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, Rambo, stay blessed, man. Have a good weekend. All right, we're gonna take one more. Right. We're gonna take one more caller. That's a 205, and then we're gonna catch up with you guys on the next show. We appreciate you guys calling in. You can take the call-in line off the bottom of the number. But the news of the day is Alabama hires a new OC, which is Tommy Rees, and we'll take our last caller before we exit out to the weekend. 205 in 3, 2, 1. Hey, good afternoon. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Clint Lamb, both a Bama insider. Who are we on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Juwan Arrington, back again from Birmingham.
Hey, what's up, man? Appreciate you calling in. Give us your take on Tommy Rees being named the OC at Bama.
Man, great hire. To be honest with you, a lot of people have mixed feelings about it, but if you turn on the tape and you look at what Rees had to deal with in Notre Dame, you'll see that, hey, now that he has top-tier talent, he's definitely going to take it further than what he had at Notre Dame. And, we bring up a key factor that, with that same Notre Dame offense, he made it into the playoffs. That same Notre Dame offense, he had Ohio State and he had other top schools on their heels. And, again, I think Ian Booker was a 3-star? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, less talent, but still was, nickel and diamond and taking people to the further extent. And also, I'm glad we didn't go, one of those higher super routes to where we're going to get a coordinator. He's probably coming in for 1 year and then he's gone, or we get another coordinator that doesn't know how to develop. I know, and I hate to keep being on the O'Brien drum, but he didn't know how to develop. You look at the X's and O's again. Some of the play concepts, didn't develop because there was no development there. So I think that's a great hire that, we got Mr. Rees.
What else you got before we let you go?
So I know that everybody was talking about the DC and the strength and conditioning. I think is it Matt Ray that's still there, or is it David Ballou?
You got David Ballou.
I'm glad that's still the route that we're on, because again, people were talking about Georgia being able to control offensive line. That is true to a certain extent. If you go back to the SEC champion, the national championship and the SEC championship at which Georgia and Alabama played, when we had healthy receivers and we were gashing them going east and west, stretching them throughout the field. Those big linemen, up front they were okay, but then when we started getting them mobile going east and west, we started gassing them. And then you see what the score was in the SEC championship. Again, the only reason why we lost in that is because we didn't have our 2-star cornerbacks and our 2-star receivers. Other than that, that game goes Alabama way. So I believe the way that we're going strength and conditioning wise is the right way.
All right, man. We're gonna let you go. We appreciate you ending the show. Please call again next time. We're gonna be back on live when Alabama hires or DC. Have a blessed weekend, and thanks for calling in.
You too, man.
All right, Clint.
That last comment, not the caller. I wouldn't say that this wasn't Nick Saban's first choice. You know, how do we know that, right? I mean, I understand what Ryan Grubb claimed, and it is very possible, but from everything that we had heard, Nick Saban was wanting to talk to people. He wanted to get where they were at as far as, you know, how willing would you be able to be to adapt, you know, your philosophy, your terminology, all of that stuff. You know, Ryan Grubb's much older than Tommy Rees. It's where do you kind of see, you know, the Alabama's offense going? You know, what can you bring to the table? It was an actual, in my opinion, a lot of these were job interviews. And it was sit down, let's hash this out, let's talk about it. And let me try to get, I think with Bill O'Brien, it was a Bill Belichick guy. There was familiarity there that he could vouch for him. And so I think that he didn't do his due diligence as much as he normally would for that very reason. And so with this coaching search and this coaching hire, he wanted to do, you know, cross all his T's, dot all his I's. And so I think he talked to a lot of these guys. And I think once he talked to Rees, it progressed fairly quickly because I think that they were on the same wavelength as far as what they envisioned for Alabama's offense and how that can connect with a program like the defense and everything else to kind of bring together what should be a championship caliber, you know, roster. Or is that going to happen in 2023? You're losing the best player, offensive player in college football, the best defensive player. You're losing both your coordinators. You know, they could take a little bit of a step back. I'm not saying that they're not going to be in the conversation. I certainly think that they will. They're Alabama. But, you know, we talk about, you know, quote unquote rebuilding years. If any year is going to be a rebuilding year, this one would make sense. So you got to, I think, look a little bit beyond on who can come in and be that 1 year stopgap offensive coordinator or 2 year guy. And who can you maybe try to get for kind of the long haul for Nick Saban's kind of final stretch. And I think that Tommy Rees certainly fits that. And so, I mean, a lot of people are going to say that this wasn't his first choice. How do we know that? Because I certainly don't. I think that I'm not and that could be wrong, but I'm not entirely sure that an offer was extended to anybody else other than Tommy Rees.
So long story short, you're telling me that Coach Saban did his homework and that Alabama is going to be fine, right?
Oh, well, yes. Don't panic.
Right.
Relax, I think is the way Aaron Rodgers put it.
Hey, man, Clint, I just want to publicly tell you, man, you do a really great job for Bama Insider. I'm a big fan of your work. Continue the grind. Continue to stay humble, and you're really good at your craft, man. So we appreciate you and Jimmy jumping on today. Keep it going, man. We all appreciate your work for Bama Insider. Hey, fam, out there, hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We appreciate you guys helping us get closer to 90,000 subscribers right here on Bama Insider. Tommy Rees is hired as the OC for the Alabama Crimson Tide. We want to get your feedback inside the comment box. Make sure to like, subscribe, and most importantly, hit the bell so you're notified every single time we drop a video right here on Bama Insider. Coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama, he's Clint Lamb. I'm Kyle Henderson, both of BamaInsider.com. Have a beautiful weekend. Stay blessed. Be good people. And we'll catch up with you soon right here on BamaInsider.com.